Welcome to Tom's Next Level Exam Prep video series. I'm Tom, and I've helped hundreds of students pass their exams and start their real estate careers. Students like my teaching approach because I include insights into the examination process and valuable study strategies. Well, I put those same insights and strategies into this video, and I'm confident you'll find them very helpful. I also recommend you watch my welcome video for an overview of my entire exam prep series. Okay, let's just take a quick look at the structure and format of the exam. All your test questions are going to be multiple choice questions, typically with 4 responses. Some of those questions will be recall questions. They'll ask you to recall specific facts. How many sections of land in a township? Or what are the essential elements of a valid deed? Other questions will be application or scenario questions. They'll set up a simple situation and ask you what should happen next. Oh, there might be a situation like this. You're a salesperson showing one of your buyer clients a property, and you notice that the roof is leaking. You look at the seller's disclosure, and the seller doesn't make any mention of a leaky roof. So what should you do next? Well, the correct response is going to be, you should notify your buyer that you're with, make sure you point out that discrepancy to your buyer, and then you should call the listing agent. You should call the listing agent and say, seller's disclosure says no leaky roof. We're in the property. There is a leaky roof. Please amend that and notify the listing agent of the discrepancy. But the first thing you should do is notify your buyer. So one of the best test taking tips I can give you is read each question completely. You're looking for key words that'll make a difference. Read each question and each answer. Well, for example, they might talk about a bookcase. They might refer to it to a freestanding bookcase or refer to it as a built-in bookcase. You know by now those are 2 totally different things. Freestanding is going to be personal property. Built-in is going to be a fixture or part of the improvement. Let me give you another example, one you can use to annoy your friends with if you want to. Non-real estate. I have 2 coins in my hand. They total 30 cents, standard American coins. They total 30 cents and one of them's not a nickel. What are they? Some of you get it right away. Some people are saying, well, there has to be a quarter and a nickel, but you said one of them's not a nickel. And I said, that's correct. One of them is not a nickel. The other one's a nickel. If I had said neither one's a nickel, that's a total different story. So by saying one of them's not a nickel, it left open the fact one of them could be a nickel. My only point is that's the type of thing they might do to you on the test. So picking your words carefully and reading them carefully is going to be very important. Most of your test questions will be except questions, your multiple choice questions. An except question. All of the following answers do not apply except. And then you pick out the one that does apply. The other type of question you have to be aware of, and I don't like these questions because they make my head hurt when I read them, I call it the double negative except question. It'll go like this. All of the following answers do not apply except. Well, if you walk through that, what are they really asking you? They're asking you which one does apply. And I used to think, well, why don't they just ask you that? Why don't they ask you which one applies? The answer is because your test you're going to take is as much a reading comprehension test as it is a fact-based knowledge test. They want to make sure you comprehend what you're reading and that you're reading it carefully. Because as a licensee, you'll be interpreting documents, you'll be asking your clients to sign agreements and reviewing agreements with them. You want to make sure you read them carefully and understand what you're reading. So watch out for that double negative except question. There'll also be questions with superfluous facts, facts that have nothing to do with the question at all, other than to try and distract you from the right answer. The most common one they use, and one you might see, deals with equity. You know what equity is? Pretty simple. How much do you owe on your house versus how much is your house worth? The difference is your equity. So if my house is worth $200,000, but I still owe $100,000, my equity in that case is $100,000. So here's how the question might go. It might include these facts. Tom bought his house 20 years ago and paid this much. And then Tom refinanced. And then his house appreciated. And then he made some improvements. And this laundry list of things to try and confuse you. But the last line in the question will be, Tom's house today is worth $200,000 and he still owes $100,000. What's his equity? Answer is still the same, and that's the only 2 bits of information you need to know. So don't let the question with superfluous facts distract you. Well, here's a few other types of exam questions you're going to run into. One of the simpler ones are vocabulary questions. What's the difference between a client, consumer, customer, or third party? Well, the client is represented by the broker because they've signed a representation agreement, but a consumer, customer, or third party are unrepresented. Those 3 are all synonymous and used interchangeably on the test, but they're unrepresented by the broker. There'll be knowledge-based questions. This one comes from my transfer of title video. What one document in real estate proves the seller owns the property? I'll let you think about that for a second and give you the correct answer is no document in real estate proves a seller owns the property. Seller has a deed, of course. The deed is a good indication that they probably own it, but there could be other title issues in the background that aren't represented or evidenced on the deed. So just know this for the test. Good thing to know for your career too. There is no one document that proves the seller owns the property. There'll also be scenario questions. Okay, this one comes out of my practice of real estate video. What should a listing broker do if a buyer's earnest money check bounces, comes back from the bank? Listing broker put the buyer's earnest money check in the listing broker's trust account. The bank calls the next day and said, their earnest money check bounced. It's no good. What's the next thing the listing broker should do? Think about that for a minute. What's the first step the listing broker should take? There'll be choices like call the police, cancel the purchase agreement, fire the agent that brought it in, or the fourth choice, which is correct, will be call the seller and ask them what they want to do. Because the seller is the listing broker's client, right? Isn't it the client's decision on what to do next? Of course it is. The seller might say, boy, am I glad that earnest money check bounced because we got a better deal last night, cancel the purchase agreement. Or the seller might say, oh my goodness, let's give the buyer another chance. We haven't had a buyer on this property in 6 months. Let's tell the buyer, you know what, we'll give you another 2 days or 3 days or write another check. The seller really can do whatever they want to do at that point. But whose decision is it to what should happen next? The broker's client. So the broker should call the client. Here's some study strategies my past students have found very, very helpful. As you're studying the material or even watching my videos, write your own test questions. Do it in your brain. Just do it. You don't have to write them down on paper. But how would you ask that question? How would you ask a question about whatever it is you're studying? If you think about the materials you're studying in the format of a test question, you might likely see that same test question when you take your exam. Okay? Take and retake your practice tests. Clearly, those are probably one of your best test-taking tools that you can use to study. Know why you got an answer wrong. When you take your exams and your practice tests, know why you got an answer wrong. Why did I get it wrong? Don't just cross it off and move to the next question. What was there about the question or about the answer that you misread and caused you to get that one wrong? That'll help you get more right in the future. One of my best tips, again, is make word association lists. I've got some examples for you in a second. Make word association lists for whatever topic you're going to be studying. Make a list of the words associated with that topic. Here, let me give you an example. When you make word association lists for whatever topic you're studying, it's going to help you anticipate what sort of test questions you'll get about that topic. Here I'm using legal descriptions. For example, in legal descriptions, you know you have 3 basic legal descriptions, and each one has specific words associated with it. So if you're talking about metes and bounds, you want to know things like monuments, benchmarks, point of beginning. With the government survey or rectangular survey, you have words like sections and townships, meridians and baselines. That's what they're going to ask you on the test. Which legal description uses monuments and benchmarks? Well, that's going to be metes and bounds. Or which one uses townships and meridians? That's going to be the government survey or rectangular survey. They might ask you about the uses of a legal description. I've seen this on the test a lot, okay? What type of legal description is often used in urban residential areas? Well, that's going to be the lot and block, or lot, block, and tract, depending on your state. So they might work these both ways. All right, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about some examination strategies you can use while you're actually taking the exam. What happens if you get into the exam room and you turned on the computer, the first question comes up and test anxiety takes over and your brain goes blank? That's happened to some students. You need to have a plan. Think about the fact it might happen. Other students I've talked to, and after discussing this a lot, this is the best approach for you to take. If your brain just goes blank, you get the deer in the headlights look. Take a breath, and we suggest skip 1 or 2 questions. Just start reading questions. You can always go back and answer questions you don't answer the first time through. The idea is take a breath, try and relax, skip to the next question. Read that one. You start reading 2 or 3 questions. What that's going to do is help your brain start to relax and get back in the idea of the information you've studied and what you're there to do, which is pass the exam. Get your brain back into a real estate mode. Start clicking through questions, reading those, reading the answers. Your body will calm down and relax a little bit. And at that point, you'll probably find a question or 2 that you know the answer to. Answer those, that'll give you a little more confidence. So I've actually had students in the past who said they sat there for 3 minutes with a deer in the headlights look, got up, walked out and said, I can't pass this exam. 3 days later, they went back and passed. They just had that moment, brief moment, that if you can get past that, if it occurs to you and if you can get past it, then you're going to be just fine, okay? We already talked about RQC. Read each question completely. Make sure you know the key words in each question, okay? And we always recommend people read the question 2 or 3 times, always looking for key words. It's going to help you get more questions correct. Another very helpful exam strategy is when you get to a question, if you're unsure of the answer, skip that question and come back to it later. I already said you'll always have a chance to go back and answer questions that you skipped over in the past. So skip a question if you're not sure. Don't be afraid of doing that. In fact, one thing you'll note if you look at the bottom of my slide, you're likely to find the answer to some questions in the body of a future question. They might use a term, a word association or whatever in a future question that's going to trigger an answer on a question that you skipped over in the past. So don't be bashful about going through and skipping some questions, seeing what's in that future question. You'll likely find the answer to one of the things you don't know about in the body of a future question. Now, along those same lines, what will happen at the end of the test is it will ask you if you'd like to go all the way back and start at the beginning and review all of your answers. After you've answered all the questions, do you want to go back and take a second look, change any of your answers? My recommendation is you don't go back and change existing answers unless there's something that popped up in a question that made you know one of your answers was wrong. We always say that your first response, your first gut feel is most likely your correct answer. So don't second guess yourself and go back through. I've seen it happen too many times where that backfires on students. I've always told my students over the years that having a positive attitude is going to be one of your best assets in passing the test. Years ago, when we taught classes live, I would get a chance to talk to students on a break or at lunchtime. And many of them told me, I'm going to take the test, Tom, but I'm just not going to pass it. There's too much information here. I'm overwhelmed. So I'll take the test, but I'll probably fail it once or twice. And I thought, what a terrible attitude to have. So I hope you're not thinking that way. If you are, get over it. Get a positive attitude. You know you're going to pass this test. Start telling yourself that. Now that's no guarantee, but for heaven's sakes, it's a better approach than telling yourself you're going to fail. Okay? Henry Ford, at the bottom of the slides, one of my favorite quotes from Henry Ford. Whether you believe you can or you can't do something, you're right. So I know there's a lot of information. So I know it's more of an affirmation than a belief system at this point. But keep telling yourself you know you're going to pass. And you're much more likely to pass. I've seen it happen. I want to take just a minute and share with you some other opportunities that will be available on my Next Level series. One of them is Next Level Career Prep. The other one is Skills Prep. Many students I've talked to said, Tom, I passed the test. That's wonderful. What do I do now? And there's sort of this blank time period where people have been focused so much on passing the test, they never really gave much thought about what to do after the test. So these videos will be available on my Next Level series. Take a couple seconds and talk about each one. How to start your career. I've got a video out there on how to select your broker. What do you need to know to select a broker? Talk about the broker interview. What type of questions? What should you look for in a broker? Another one, very important one, is a business plan. As a real estate salesperson, many of you will operate as independent contractors, which means you own your own business. So my question was always to them, what's your plan for success? What are you going to do? I've got some great steps in there to set up a basic business plan and help you get your career on the right path and get it rolling. To be successful in real estate, you're going to need certain skills. If you take a look at the landscape, once you get your license and start hanging around more and more real estate salespeople, you realize that they all have half a dozen skills in common, okay? We talk about what those skills are, how you can develop them, and how you can practice those skills. So you too can get in the ranks of a very successful real estate salesperson. Well, I'll talk about one real quick. One skill that every successful real estate salesperson has is you need to be able to talk to people that you don't know. You need to be able to get comfortable talking to people you don't know. For a lot of people in today's society, that's kind of a rough skill to develop. Many people, maybe that's why you're getting into real estate, you've got that gift of gab, for want of a better phrase. You're able to talk to people you don't know. But some people are a bit terrified of that. So I talk about how you can develop and practice that skill and get good at it, okay? So if you subscribe to my video system at the end here, I'll certainly give you updates and let you know when all those are available. Well, here's the list of my 10 national topic videos. I use personal experiences and examples to explain the principles and concepts in each video. And I certainly encourage you to watch my welcome video. That's got a helpful overview of my entire exam prep video series. So now, whenever you're ready to start your exam prep, here's the steps you want to take. Gather up your course materials from your current education provider and a notebook. Please have a nice big notebook available to make a lot of notes in. Select the national topic video that you want to start to review and begin your exam prep. I actually narrate each one of the exam topics, so I'll see you in each of the national videos. And with that, you got this. I know you can pass your exam. I believe in you. You should believe in you. So good luck with your exam prep and good luck taking your test. As always with these YouTube videos, if you like the video, you can click below. If you want to subscribe, if you do subscribe to my video series, I will certainly send you updates on information when new videos are released or updated, especially on my career prep and my skills prep information. If you'd love to leave a comment, I'd love to see them. And certainly, if you have somebody else you know who's studying for their test, if you want to share my system with them, I'd appreciate it if you would send them this link. So with that, have a great day.